Hey, what's going on YouTube? So this is my M240i. So I'm going to be doing a video on 5 things I absolutely love about this car. I've owned it for 2 years and there's a lot of things I love about this car. So there's only so much I could fit in this video. I tried to stay away from the stuff that you hear in a lot of videos, except for the first one. The first one I have to cover, so here we go. All right, so the first thing I absolutely love about this car is the performance and the looks. So I really wanted to kind of stay away from this because everyone kind of talks about it, but it's hard not to talk about it because it's such a big point in the car. It's such a big selling point for it. So the car has 335 horsepower. Torque I will have posted on the video because I don't know the torque number off the top of my head, but the performance is just absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to pop it into sport right now. So with this car, pretty much at every single point in the rev band, you have torque. So right now I'm in third, I press it, and we're going. So it's a powerful car for what you get in kind of this, price point and this kind of power area. Because some cars you have to really ring out the RPMs to get that power, whereas this car, pretty much any point in the RPMs, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, pretty much at any gear, it might take an extra second, but the power will pick up very, very quickly. Yeah, so the speed in this car is just crazy. So it doesn't really pick up well on the camera, and obviously I'm not going to say how fast I'm driving, but this car picks up really well. The acceleration on this thing, as I mentioned already with the torque, the acceleration on this car is just so good. Now the braking in this car too is really fantastic. If you do plan on tracking the car, I would definitely get track brakes, but if you're just daily driving this car, the stock brakes are more than enough. Downshifts. Alright, so the second reason why I absolutely love this BMW is because of the reliability. Over the last, maybe 10 or so years, BMW have had a very bad reputation for reliability. It really kind of changed with this kind of newer generation of BMWs, so they're not as unreliable as they used to be. This car comes with the first generation of the B58 engine, and this one has the ZF8 automatic transmission. So very good transmission, used in a lot of cars, trucks, and they just don't have any issues with them. I believe the new 2023 M2 actually comes with the same gearbox as well. Instead of the dual clutch, they actually use the ZF8 like this car does. But the B58, the cool thing is, typically when an engine comes out, the first generation is typically pretty bad, or at least it has a lot of issues with it. And then as the engine kind of evolves, they iron out those little issues. This one never really had too many issues to start, so there's really not too much to fix with this car. With this car, if you do the regular maintenance on it, like your oil changes, your spark plugs, you're not really going to have any issues with this car. If you look at some of the other models out there that are a little bit older, like take the M3, right? The rod bearing issue on that car, it's not an official maintenance piece that's on schedule where, hey, at this mileage you have to do the rod bearings, but it's an unofficial service that you kind of have to do if you don't want the engine to blow up on you. With this car, if you do all the regular maintenance on it, that's actually in the book, like your spark plugs, and then on top of that, if you do stuff like the differential, which I don't believe is in the book, if you do your transmission service, so if you do those things, the car will be fine and the car will treat you very well. I have 65,000 miles on this car, so I put 25,000 miles on this car myself, doing a lot of hard driving, and I haven't really had any issues with this car. I've had two small problems. The first one being the actuator clip on the valved exhaust. I've had that snap, but that's only like a $10 part. And I've had the skid plate under my car drop from my car before, basically acting like a shovel on the highway. And that was really because of a sheared bolt that happened because of the speed bumps at my job. It has nothing to do with the reliability of the car. And then with that too, a lot of times when cars get kind of up there in mileage, you start to develop creaks and little sounds, and it becomes evident over time that the build quality is just kind of not really there. I have no creaks in this car whatsoever. Everything is built so well and so sturdy in this car that I've never really had an issue with weird sounds, weird noises that, you know, I couldn't exactly pinpoint to, hey, this is, you know, a water bottle rattling under my seat, you know? So if you buy a good German-built BMW these days, it will treat you well and you're not going to really have any issues with it. Now, the third thing I absolutely love about this car is the sound deafening in here from the outside. Now, this is kind of a double-edged thing, so I love it and I also hate it at the same time. The great thing about this car is it's still a BMW, it's still a luxury car, even if it is just a 2 Series. So when you're driving and you don't want to hear anything in the outside world, you can just drive quietly and do that. Right now, I'm just cruising and just driving 45 miles an hour, doing about 1,300 RPM, and the car is quiet. It is nice sometimes to be able to just drive quietly, because we all love our cars to be loud. We all have aftermarket exhaust on our cars. This one I have a Remus exhaust on, and it's nice when you do want to do a little bit of performance driving. But the fact is, as much as we all love to say, yeah, I drive my car in Sports Plus all the time, it's always on the highest settings, and the fact is we don't always drive that way. If you put it in Sports Plus, drive it like it's in Sports Plus. But honestly, if you're just driving it, just, you know, peacefully, you want to listen to music, you're kind of in your own little space, you can do that in this car. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about it, is when you want it to be quiet in here, it can be quiet in here. And then if you roll down the windows, you can hear the engine, you can hear the exhaust. And even with an aftermarket exhaust, you still can hear it through the car when you want to. Fourth gear, third gear, you can still hear the exhaust, you can still hear the engine. The car is still ripping, it's still going when you want it to. You can still hear it. Now, the fourth thing I love about this car is the infotainment system. So the BMW has the typical iDrive system, and it's actually really fantastic as far as infotainment systems go. So typically systems are very laggy, not very intuitive. They don't show you all the settings you want to see. This one's very different. So it does have your typical click wheel, and this is the main home menu. And as you scroll through everything, there's absolutely zero lag. But let me just show you a couple of things I love in here. Now, you have your notifications. This will tell you any issues with the car. So I have an engine oil service that's due. This says it's overdue. That's not true for me because I get the 5,000 oil change. So even though it says it's overdue, I'm really not. I still have a long way to go. Now, this will also tell you any services you need for the car coming up. So when you scroll through here, brake pads, I'm still really good on pads. Brake fluid, so this November I got to get the brake fluid done, and just a general vehicle check. Now you can measure the oil in here, check your tire pressure. Now, one of the cool things is if you have an app like Beamer Code or something like that you can do coding on your car, you can actually make it display the temperature. Navigation, so the default navigation in this car is actually really good, and I would definitely suggest using it. If you're just cruising around town, it's really easy to kind of scroll. So one of the cool things that I don't really use it too often because it's a little bit janky, but you can actually, on the click wheel on the surface, just like this, you can actually draw the letters. Communication, you have your typical stuff here as with anything. You have your phone, your contacts, all that good stuff. Really cool. The media as is not bad. It's actually pretty good. I have Apple CarPlay, so mine's not going to show the default one. But that's one of the cool things about this car for 2017 is it came with Apple CarPlay standard. At the time, the issue with Apple CarPlay was you had to pay for it. In this car, it came standard with it, and a lot of cars now are including it standard, but BMW is kind of one of the first ones to do so. So really awesome, especially for the time. The Apple CarPlay menu in here is very good. It's also very quick, very intuitive. You know, I have Spotify open right now. Again, I'm scrolling. You have your Apple Maps, and you have your dual screen, which is really cool if you want to see your map. So really good infotainment system. Absolutely love it. Now, the fifth thing I love about this car, and it's probably the best thing, is the price. So when this car came out, its MSRP, depending on how you spec'd it, was about $50,000. Now, the car now is worth about $30,000 in 2023. Now, I got lucky that I bought it for about $30,000 for the price it is now 2 years ago. There's not much competition with this car for that price point. And honestly, for the money, it's probably one of the best performance cars you could buy nowadays. When you kind of approach that $30,000, there's a very small niche, because you have this car, you have the Audi S3, and there's really not much else that kind of ticks the same boxes. The next kind of jump up is into that kind of $40,000, kind of $45,000 mark, where you start to be able to look at used M2s, older M4s, and even M3s. There's really kind of a big gap between this car and the next kind of tier up. Like, you buy a Honda Civic loaded, an Accord, like, you're paying $30,000. Buy this car, you get all these really cool features, the performance, the reliability, all that for $30,000. Really a fantastic value that you don't really see in a lot of other cars. And that's the thing with the fifth reason of the price, is it really kind of ties everything in this car together. You know, you have your performance, you have the reliability of this car, the looks, it looks beautiful. You have the fantastic infotainment system, and it all gets tied together and so well. And the fact you can drive it like a luxury car, you can drive it quietly and peacefully. If you have your music on, just kind of in your own little world, you can do that. And that's a really awesome thing to have with this car. It really just kind of ties all of it together, is that price point of $30,000. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. That was 5 things I absolutely love about the M240i. Stay tuned. I'm going to be making a video on 5 things I absolutely hate about this car. And I've owned the car for 2 years, so there's a couple things that I'm not a huge fan of with this car, so stay tuned for that one. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe, or just leave a comment with some feedback. It's all appreciated. So until next time.